and welcome to this week's edition of the Swiss Money Solution, the show providing you with more financial tools than a Swiss Army knife. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio, we have two members from Swiss American Financial, the CEO, Jörg Eichmann, and financial advisor and Medicare navigator, Jim Keegan. We're so glad you're joining us today. We are going to be talking all about navigating the Medicare maze. We know that Medicare is one of those decisions that can be very confusing and very complex for folks to try to navigate on their own. But don't worry, we've got help and solutions for you today on how you can navigate this important decision for your life successfully. Jörg, Jim, so great to be here with both of you. How are you this week?
Good to be with you. Thank you so much.
Great. And Jim, I know Jörg and I have gotten to do the show together. This is your first time with us. We're so glad you're joining us.
It is. It's a pleasure to be on the show, and I look forward to working with you.
Absolutely.
And, where I work with Jörg, and we have a great time and doing great things for people. And
you are, for sure. Well, that's the first thing I want to just highlight and mention, because a lot of folks may not be aware that a lot of financial firms out there won't even have the Medicare conversation with you. What happens? They tell you to go elsewhere, to go down the street, right? But you all do it in-house. You do Medicare planning as part of the overall comprehensive financial planning process that you develop for each person you work with. Explain why you made that important decision to do it that way.
That's an excellent question, and it really is one of the major elements that we started realizing a couple of years ago. So Jim joined us around 5 years ago and really completed our team for Fiduciary Financial Network, because we realized IRMAA is getting more and more prevalent now in people's retirement planning. What's IRMAA? Income-related monthly adjusted amounts that are essential for your Medicare premiums. And because of inflation and an adjustment with the cost of living of Social Security benefits and other increases that people got from, the stimulus packages and the free money that the government sent out to everyone during COVID, now they have all this extra taxable burden that can push lots of people just over that limit for that IRMAA level, where all of a sudden things are starting to happen that we've never seen in almost 20 years, which were a lot of people coming in and saying, well, guess what? I paid higher Medicare premiums. Why is that?
Yeah, why did that happen to me, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in Jim, we have a Medicare navigator for our clients that can see us in our office. They don't have to go to different places. It has to be different offices and different meetings.
Right.
However, we can now hold these meetings in the same place and tie everything together, right?
Yes.
So the plan is actually working with all your income streams that we talked about so many times, the retirement blueprint and the different assets, the withdrawals you get from it. And Jim now also is a certified federal retirement counselor as well.
That's awesome.
So because now with all these layoffs that we recently had, right, in the last couple of months,
right?
Now Jim is also able to help those people to transition from the public sector into the private sector. So he's really a crazy busy man right now.
Yes.
We have a couple of 70-plus hour work weeks, but I think he's beating mine now too.
Well, what I love is that the right hand is talking to the left hand for your clients, right? If we use that analogy, you're able to look at all these pieces, because how you make a decision in a lot of these areas can impact so many other aspects of your financial life. You can't afford to look at any one of these pieces without how they connect together.
yeah, I think, we have one of the most comprehensive retirement planning processes that you're going to find in the industry. And like you said, putting it all together and making sure, you're tying those bows, to put that plan together so people can do their retirement and enjoy their retired life.
Right, and that's what it's all about, for sure. Well, specifically with Medicare, I know that there are three things that people tend to care about the most, and we want to address these up front. This is the access that they are going to receive from their access to health care that they can receive from Medicare, what benefits are actually included in their plan, and then what it's going to cost. Those are really the three big concerns that folks have when enrolling in Medicare, right?
Yeah, exactly. When you're talking to people about Medicare, I'd sit down with our clients and prospects, and that's part of the fact-finding process is, who are their doctors, who are their specialists. People, they have relationships with their primary care doctors. And a lot of people want to make sure that they have access to that primary care doctor.
Right, that
So,
doesn't get disrupted,
yeah,
right?
you know, they want to go to who they've been going to for the last 20, 30 years, and they want that relationship to continue because they've got a good relationship. They also want to make sure that they're maximizing their benefits, you know, because Medicare is a little bit different than a group plan that most people came off of from working. You know, with Medicare, it's an individual. For, you know, a husband can have one plan, the spouse, the wife could have another plan, and it helps address the different types of conditions that they have. Maybe one's got some more chronic conditions versus the other one being a little bit different. You know, one's got other priorities. And so, you know, it also comes down to what are the costs associated with, you know, getting those benefits? What are the co-pays? Are there premiums associated? What are the co-pays? You know, and it comes down to, you know, how can they budget for it? How can we minimize the cost and maximize the benefits?
Right, and that's really what it's about. And I think, too, you know, we said earlier it can be really confusing. Part of that is that when people hit age 65, from a marketing standpoint, you get really sexy, right? Because all the marketing machine starts this onslaught of information. We often talk about the Medicare, the alphabet soup of Medicare, because there's all these different letters. So we need to unpack that a little bit too. So let's review the basics, because you said Medicare has several parts. So can you walk us through the basics of each of these parts?
Yeah, I'd love to. So, you know, when you're talking about Medicare, a lot of people will get parts and plans confused. Medicare has parts. Plans are put out there by private insurance carriers to help cover the gaps of Medicare. When Medicare was signed into law in the mid-1960s, it was never designed to be a comprehensive health plan. It was designed to be a foundation, and like, you know, your retirement plan. You know, you don't go buy your windows and your roofing materials before you get to the design of your house.
Get the architect to build that plan, right?
You know, there's architectural and engineering stuff that comes along with everything.
Right.
And so you've got Medicare as your foundation, but how you build upon it is up to you. But, you know, like I said, parts and plans. Medicare, original Medicare had two parts. Part A, which is considered hospital insurance. The vast majority of everybody will get Part A for free because of the work history that they've had. If they've worked 40 quarters or 10 years and contributed FICA taxes, their Part A will come to them at no cost.
Okay.
And that's hospital insurance. And so I like to tell people you can think of it as the places you go to get your health care delivered to you. You know, the second part of it, original Medicare, was Part B. Part B has a monthly premium. For 2025, it's $185. And that is what I consider the people. You know, that's your doctors, your specialists, you know, the anesthesiologists, the people that are delivering your health care. You know, Part B covers, you know, your doctors, your wellness visits, some ambulance, you know, costs, different things like that. It also can help with some of the medications you might get in the doctor's office that are considered Part B medications.
Okay.
So you've got A, B, C, and D in Medicare. So original Medicare consisted of A and B.
Okay, yeah.
And so Part C came around in 1999. That's called the Medicare Advantage Plan. And so if anybody out there in TV land watches TV between October 15th and December 7th, you've seen all the Medicare Advantage commercials that are on TV.
Yep.
It's a big time, you know, and so, you know, that's where the Medicare Advantage plans, people look at them, people can change different things like that. Medicare Advantage plans are put out there by private insurance carriers. They have a contract with the original Medicare that says, okay, if you go enroll Jim Keegan into one of your Medicare Advantage plans, you've got to give Jim at minimum everything that we would give him in original Medicare under Part A and Part B. Again, hospitals are places, and Part B is your people. And so they do that by giving you access to their network.
Okay.
You know, when they first came out, their networks were small. They were not put together very well. Today, they're put together really well. They're great networks. You know, a lot of primary care doctors, a lot of specialists, and a lot of benefits.
Right.
And so A, B, C, and in 2006, Congress passed a law that said, okay, everybody enrolled in Medicare has to have some type of prescription drug coverage. And so you can either get Medicare prescription drug coverage two different ways, through a standalone prescription drug plan or with a Medicare Advantage plan where the prescription plan is embedded inside of your comprehensive plan. So like I said, there's parts of Medicare, A, B, C, and D, and then the plans that kind of put it all together.
Right. Wow. A lot to unpack. Thank you for explaining that, because it can be very confusing for folks on the onset. This is the first time that most people are navigating this is when they're of age, right?
Right. Until you're 65, it all sounds boring. Like, whatever. Right? And then all of a sudden, I'm 65. What am I going to do now? So
exactly.
That's a really important part to keep within the retirement planning process. So
yes, for sure.
And again, Jim can really help to make sure that they're going to actually enlist on time, so they're not getting any penalties. I think we're going to get to that here in a little bit as well.
Yes, for sure. Well, I know we've got a lot more to cover, but for folks watching who might be going, yeah, that's me. I need to start paying attention to this stuff. I need to start figuring out this Medicare maze for myself. How can them connecting with you and the team be helpful to them?
Well, we'll sit down and we'll go through, what they want, what they need. With Medicare, you've earned the rights, you've earned the entitlements to be enrolled in Medicare. But then there are all the other supplemental benefits. Original Medicare doesn't cover some things. Other plans will add in those things that original Medicare comes down to. So it comes down to, finding out what your priorities are.
Right.
What are your needs? Is there, is there a chronic condition you're trying to deal with? Maybe diabetes, some heart conditions, things like that. And how do we go make sure that we maximize your benefits, minimize your costs, make sure you've got access to the great specialists that you need, and access to the medications that are going to help you manage those chronic conditions.
Wonderful. And really, this is just one piece of that overall comprehensive written financial plan that folks can receive from you, right?
Absolutely. Yes, that's a big part, I would say now, more and more often, because there are other things that we just talked about in the beginning, which is the penalties, or increasing Medicare premiums now all of a sudden are part of the conversation when they used to never be part of this conversation. Right.
So we're going to get to all of that when we come back. But if this is resonating with you, maybe you're already working with another financial advisor, but they're not having this Medicare conversation with you, and you want some help figuring out how this fits into your overall financial plan. This is why the team of Swiss American Financial would love to be able to connect with you. And you can call the number on the bottom of your screen to schedule your time to come in and receive your very own complimentary written financial plan. That number to call is 855-620-2567. Or if you'd rather connect online, you can simply scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. We'll be back with more right after this.
I'm originally from Switzerland, grew up there. My whole family, they're very musical. By the time I was 3, supposedly, I was sitting at the piano and doing this with no notes. I just saw myself at 3 years old, this is what I want to do. Had a great time over there, worked for record companies. When I finally entered the top 10 in the charts in Europe, everyone started to show up and call, right? Because now you're in the charts. So they all want to decorate themselves with some celebrity or not. So I got a couple phone calls, and one of them was from a gentleman that was running some kind of a private bank, and he was living in Palm Beach at that point for 8 years. So onto the plane in Frankfurt, landed in Miami, and it was sunshine and blue skies and palm trees. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. This is great, I'm staying here. So part of the reason why I made it to the US and do what I'm doing now is really that middle step of pursuing my passion of being in music, but it's such a cutthroat business. I also went to the Superior School of Economics in Switzerland, and then I finally got my degree from another school in Bern. So I figured, you know what, you might as well go back to what you were taught in school, and got a degree in. So I ended up forming our company about 20 years ago, and I started to love what I was doing. I started to realize we can really make an impact on people's lives. We can really change their outcome.
Welcome back to the Swiss Money Solution. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and I'm joined by both Jörg and Jim from Swiss American Financial. We are talking today all about navigating the Medicare maze. This is something that really sets this team apart, is that they do the Medicare planning for their clients in-house as part of your overall comprehensive financial plan. And you all have done such a great job already unpacking this Medicare maze. Of course, there's lots to unravel here. We know it can be really confusing for folks. one of the things that makes it so confusing is a lot of people have the misconception that Medicare is actually going to cover all of their health care needs. Let's talk about that, because that's not usually the case, is it?
Exactly, Kristen. When you take a look at Medicare, like I said earlier, Medicare is put out there by the federal government, and it's a foundation for your health care moving forward. It's not comprehensive, and so there's a lot of co-pays and deductibles that are associated with it. When you look at Part A, which is the hospital insurance, and like the places that you go to get your health care delivered to you. If you go in the hospital on original Medicare, the first day that you lay your head down in that pillow and just stay in that room, just the room cost is over $1,600 a day.
Wow.
After a while that you've been in there for, say you've been in there for a couple months, well, then you go up to $408 a day or $418 a day. After 3 months, you're paying $836 a day to be in a hospital room. That's just a bed, a pillow, a TV, and 3 meals. So when you look at that, that's over $24,000 a year or a month just to be in a hospital room.
Wow.
Then you get into Part B, there's an annual deductible of $257 for any type of people services, professional doctor services, wellness visits, stuff like that. But then those costs are uncapped and split at 80-20. So your portion as the person on original Medicare who doesn't build upon their foundation has an exposure of 20% of all cost uncapped. So a $100,000 bill coming out of an operating room is going to cost you $20,000. So you need a kidney transplant, and it's $1 million bill. Nobody wants to see that.
No, for sure.
And so when you take a look at it, there's also, original Medicare doesn't cover vision, dental, hearing, prescription drugs, or long-term care.
Right, which those things you just mentioned, I know for me, I'm in my mid-40s, those are the things that are starting to go, right? Vision, dental, hearing, and this is what that's what's so interesting. So many folks assume Medicare is going to cover those things, and it doesn't.
It doesn't, and that's, like I said, that's part of the planning process. When I sit down with people, and we do that individual deep dive what are your priorities? What are your wants? What are your needs? Your medical is going to be pretty well taken care of. It's all those other supplemental benefits, help you with manage your chronic conditions, The wife might have one priority, the husband has another priority. And so it's individualized, and so we can build it that way. So we build upon that foundation to give them the health coverage that they need.
I just have to pause and ask Jörg, I see you nodding along, and I know you guys have such a great working relationship. What's the feedback been from clients who've come in to meet with you all, and when they find out that all of this can be taken care of in one place?
That is such a good question. We just had a couple callers from the last TV show, actually, that became clients, and 2 of them said, oh, I have never heard of any of this. I've never heard of the term IRMAA. And then one of them said, well, what's RMD? I'm like, how long have you been with your advisor exactly? You don't know what the required minimum distribution is? And then we told them, well, in your case, you got to really be careful because you have most of your money is saved in pre-tax retirement accounts.
Right.
So you're in the mid-60s here. You only have a couple of years left where you can do some Roth IRA conversion, because if you don't do anything, you're guaranteed to be IRMAA qualified, meaning you're going to get one step up within a couple of years and the second step, and you'll never be able to deduct that because your overall total income is already pushing you over that limit that can no longer be corrected. So the fact that he then says, when we told him, maybe your wife should take 50% of your Social Security benefit, and what did he say again, Jim? Never heard of that before.
Right, the spousal benefit,
it blows, I mean, sometimes it's blowing us away of what people don't know that they are supposed to know. And it's not their fault at all.
No, for sure
It's whoever works with them that fails to educate them enough to make the educated decision they need to be able to make in order to avoid taxes and premium spikes increases. And the funny thing is the older you get, the closer you think about all these things. And I think the day I turned 50, I couldn't see anymore.
Right.
I mean, it was literally on my birthday. I'm like,
I'm laughing with you, not at you. Right? Yes, no, I mean, I hit 45, and all of a sudden it's just been this steady decline ever since,
that's
right?
what it is.
Well, I think, too, with IRMAA, this income-related monthly adjustment amount, just so our viewers understand, your Medicare premiums are based on your income level from 2 years prior. This is where folks can get into trouble, right? Because all of a sudden their Medicare premiums can spike, and it's because of a decision they unknowingly made 2 years ago.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
you're absolutely correct there. So, like your income planning before, you get to 65 is very crucial. Like I said, the IRS and Social Security are looking 2 years back. So right now in 2025 to set your Medicare premiums, they're looking at your 2023 modified gross adjusted income. Not just your AGI.
Right.
But they're looking at your modified, and that's your AGI with some other things added back into it.
Yep.
And once you get into those IRMAA spikes, it's tough to get out if you, depending on what your income flows are,
Correct.
and different things like that. So it's developing that comprehensive plan that brings everything together to make sure that you're maximizing all your benefits.
For sure. Well, Jurg, I know you've had a lot of folks who've been calling into the television show.
yeah.
Why don't you just remind our viewers what all they can expect when they come in and meet with you all to receive this complimentary written financial plan?
Yes, I would love to. So the first thing we always say, as Jim mentioned before, when you build a house, you have an architect first, you get a blueprint, and then you start building. So we don't want to put the cart in front of the horse, right? We want to make sure that when you come in, the first thing we have is really a discovery of what is your individual personal situation. No two look alike. So you can't have this software produced, just boilerplate, boring, here's what it looks like if you're conservative, and here's what it looks like if you're moderate, and here's what it looks like if you're aggressive. Blah, blah. I mean, sorry, but that doesn't do the trick anymore these days. That's over. It needs to be tailored toward your specific need. We all know what the market's going to do if it's conservative, moderate, or aggressive. Okay.
Right.
Assuming the last 30 years is an indicator of where the market's going to go the next 30 years. But we don't know that. Because what? We didn't expect. Things that never happened before happened all the time.
Yes.
It's a thing that we used to say.
Right.
So you want first a full comprehensive retirement plan. We're not talking, again, something computer. We have actually, we hired a gentleman away from a large firm that generated our retirement plans for the last 20 years, and we hired him exclusively to do those plans just for our clients. So now we have, the actual privilege to say, these are our plans exclusively. Nobody else can provide those. Then we take it to the next level, to tax planning. After the tax planning, we go to the next level, put everything in a nice blueprint where you know exactly, these are all my income streams. This is fixed income. These are my assets. This is my total income. Minus taxation, that's what's left over. This is my desired lifestyle income that covers paychecks and playchecks, and that's what's left over. You want to have something left over here, so no matter what happens to the economy, just like what we've been through the last couple of days with the markets, you don't want that to spook you to the point where, shoot, I guess we can't go on a vacation this year. No, you didn't just save all your life then to give up that retirement plan and do what you want to do for the rest of your life. Come on, folks.
Yep.
Get in and let's try to get a nice retirement plan together that includes all that Medicare planning that Jim is doing, and it's included in our process.
Well, Jurg, Jim, thank you so much. If this sounds like something that you're saying, yes, I need this, we encourage you to reach out. All you have to do is call the number on the bottom of your screen, 855-620-2567. Or again, you're welcome to scan that QR code, and that will get you connected as well. When we come back, did you know that there's an open enrollment period for Medicare and an annual enrollment period? That's a fast tongue twister to say, right? Stay with us to find out what those two enrollment periods could mean for you.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter, the one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Welcome back. We're so glad you're joining us today as we've been discussing how to navigate the Medicare maze here on the Swiss Money Solution. And before the break, I mentioned that there are two different enrollment periods when it comes to Medicare, something known as the open enrollment period and then the annual enrollment period. Just to add that other layer of confusing complexity here, right? Because they do make it very confusing. But talk about how you encourage people to do an annual review of their coverage and how that plays into these two different enrollment periods.
Yeah, I think enrollment periods are very crucial to people, to review their Medicare. So you've got your initial enrollment period. That's when you turn 65, and that enrollment period is the month of your birthday, 3 months before and 3 months after.
So anytime within that 7-month window, right?
You got a 7-month window to get yourself enrolled or to do the right thing. Defer your Part B, get your Part A, a number of different options there, And like you said before, making no decision there or making the wrong decision can cost you for the rest of your life because you end up with a penalty on your Part B and your Part D that never goes away. And so you're just throwing money down the tube. But once you do get enrolled, there's the annual enrollment period and the open enrollment period. As I said earlier, the annual enrollment period is October 15th through December 7th. And I highly encourage everybody to sit down with somebody like me to go over what your plan is, where you're currently at, and what has changed for the new year. In going into 25, there were a lot of changes that impacted a lot of people and a lot of benefit reductions, and it shook the industry up a little bit and changed the landscape of it and that. But, not knowing what you've got going into the next year, walking into it blind, and not knowing what's going to happen can be very expensive. Plans change every year.
Yes. Yep.
When you also look at it, you've got are there additional premiums, additional deductibles, what are co-pays, what are co-insurances? Have my benefits been reduced and my cost increased and all that stuff? And so when you take a look at it, I can help people find, plans that'll end up ultimately costing them less money, give them better benefits, and get them the stuff that they need to help potentially manage chronic conditions and that. And so there's also these other types of plans out there, special needs plans and all that. So, everybody should be having a review done every year, and especially if you've got a prescription drug plan. Because if you get in the wrong drug plan, you walk into the pharmacy in January and the pharmacist hands you that $1,500 bill.
You don't want to get in that predicament, right?
And this is why you have to come in. If you have questions about any of this, we encourage you to reach out. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to being back with you next time here on the Swiss Money Solution.